9:30, and we'll call the meeting of the Community Development Committee to order. John, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Cletus. What I'm going to do is I'm going to skip to topic number 7 first. We have a request to discuss that. This is the continuation of the discussion we had last month regarding the substantial stormwater buildup on properties between Heath Road and Irvingwood Drive. The water we have discovered is coming from the airport and Van Boris property, which we all expected. And thanks to some research by the Newark Engineering Office and by the County Airport Commission, we discovered that that is an easement that was installed around the early 1930s to drain the Van Boris property and the airport property. So it is a legal easement that's there legally. The amount of water that can drain is determined by the size of the pipe. So I know we're all wondering, did the airport do something to cause more drainage? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but it doesn't matter because it's all legal coming out of that pipe. So we have determined that the easement is there and the water coming out of the pipe is legal. Now, the second phase of this is I was under the impression that ODOT may have screwed up when they rerouted Ramp Creek to put in Irvingwood Drive. But in discussions with ODOT, we found out that the creek bed where this is now draining was not to be filled in. It was supposed to remain open to allow that water plus water coming off the properties to drain to that pipe that goes under Irvingwood Drive. So that was considered when they did the construction. What we don't know is what caused the water to jam up and stop flowing. It could have been on Eldine Drive when they were developing that was being developed at the same time that ODOT was rerouting the creek. It's possible some of the construction could have done that. It's also possible that if you walk back there now, you know, a lot of shrubs and bushes and trees have all grown up in the old bed. And over time, that will definitely reduce the ability of water to flow through. Also, what we found out, and I'll get into this in a few minutes, is we've had a few surveys done, and there isn't much of a grade to the creek. It's pretty flat, so water isn't going to flow very well as it is.
By creek, are you talking about the old bend in where?
The old bend, the old creek bed.
Okay.
Right. So there are several reasons why the water may not be flowing. The question now is, what do you do to make it flow? And I came up with 4 options, and you might have more, of what you could do at this particular time.
John, before you get there, let me just ask you a quick question. Okay, so this is a drainage easement from back in the 30s?
It's in the 30s,
like
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would that easement be reflected on the like on the legal descriptions of these properties along that route, or along the, you know, if you were to do a survey of it, would it be shown there?
It would only be shown on the property where the easement actually is.
Okay.
And if you were to buy that property today and get a mortgage, and they did a title search, that should come up on the title search.
Okay.
However, the properties that it flows through from that point to get to the outlet on Irvingwood Drive, it may or may not show up on any title searches there.
From where it comes out of the pipe?
Right, right. Because that's where the river was. It was always there.
Okay.
So whether or not it would show up, I don't know.
Okay.
So the question is, what do you do next? First of all, before I go any further, any questions on any of that? We've got documentation and everything else. So in that case,
how can I get a copy of that?
Sure. What we do now is, do we fix it or do we just not fix it? You know, I'm bringing all the things up here. The most common sense thing would be to just reconnect the old bed to that drainage pipe. And we came up with a figure of about $30,000 to do that last month. There are a couple problems there if you do that. The first thing, as I said earlier, is the grade on the riverbed is very flat. And it's so filled with obstructions that in itself would not be a solution. You would have to go through and clean the old riverbed all the way up to the pipe to allow the water to have a clearer channel to flow through. And even if you did do that, the grade is so low that the water would barely flow. So that's one way to do it, but ultimately, if you had a lot of water coming out of that pipe over a long period of time, it could still lay there and flow very slowly.
So the elevation of where the opening in the pipe is close to the elevation of where the opening in the pipe is that runs underneath Irving Wick.
That's
Is that what
correct,
you're-
yes.
So you would still,
It would
it
drain.
would pool up still. If
It would
you
pool
had-
up because it would drain so slowly.
Yeah,
It's almost flat.
yeah,
So, yes, you can do that, and that would essentially,
yeah.
that was not a problem when you had the river there, because you had a lot
'Cause
of
it was
volume
right
of
there.
water. You had
Yeah.
volume pushing it all the time. But just with this and maybe water from the properties, you're still going to have water sitting. Also, in order to do this, you would have to have the approval of all the property owners from where the pipe is all the way down to where the end of the Oak Creek bed is. That's one solution. The cost to do that, this is rough cost, is about $78,000. The reason that's so high is you've got to come in there and clean all the brush out and stuff like that. Now, there's a second solution, and that is where the pipe now exits.
Wait, hold on, let me back up. Okay, so solution number one was basically trench from where the drainage pipe comes out with the water to where the drainage pipe at Irving Wick is supposed to take it, and that was a $30,000 option?
The $30,000 option was just to trench it from where the channel ends now to the pipe
Okay,
underneath Irvingwood Drive.
okay,
Then an addendum to that, because that really wouldn't do much good,
uh-huh,
is to trench the whole channel.
yeah.
And then that would be $78,000.
No.
And the reason for that high
On top of the
price,
30 or inclusive of?
inclusive of the 30
Okay.
in total. The reason for that is you've got to go through and you've got to clear out all the brush and all that other stuff.
So the $30,000 option really is not a very
No.
successful.
No, that wouldn't do anything.
Okay.
$30,000 is kind of a waste of money. So that's one way to look at this. The second way is to take the existing end of the pipe where it now discharges the water and continue with pipe and just go straight across, bore underneath Irvingwood Drive and have it discharge into the existing channel. That's an option as well. Now there are problems with that too, because what happens is that will not take care of any water that may come off of your properties and stay in that area. That water would just stay there. Now, that won't be anywhere near what you've had, but you may have the potential for having water there yet, but it wouldn't be as great as it is now. You may have in really wet seasons, maybe a little water down there. I don't know how much water drains off your property, probably not a lot.
Yeah,
But-
that would be negligible.
Yeah, so it might be a little wet, but it wouldn't be swampy like it is now. So that is an option as well. The elevations do allow that. And that option is about $91,500.
That's boring underneath Irving Wick.
Living Wick, and then getting the water to discharge
Okay.
Into Ram Creek.
into Ram Creek, right? Now, a third option, and then again, we'd have to have the approval of the property owner to get an easement in order to do that.
Mhm.
Then a third option is actually to go to the airport. And on the north side of the airport, the runway acts as a dam, okay? Probably 95, 96, 97% of all the water coming out of the pipe is dammed on the north side of the runway. The remaining amount comes from other areas on the airport. Now, you could channel that water parallel to the runway going east and then eventually connect it to the drainage ditch that's behind Ram Creek. You do have the elevations to do that. Now, you'd have to get the approval of the airport.
The one that runs in between where Red Lobster is and the old Swifty?
Right, right. Now, you'd have to get the approval of the airport to do that. And that one is the most expensive one at about $204,000. So, I mean, there may be other options, but
Would
these
you
are,
need the property owner of the farm field there, or is that also the airport?
Well, we would need, that's the airport. The airport actually owns it all behind Ram Creek.
Okay.
So we would have to get their permission there. So there may be other options out there, but these are the three most obvious options. Then the fourth option, which
I'm sorry, what was the cost on that last?
204,000.
204. Okay.
And then a fourth option is just not to do anything and see what happens. See if this is an anomaly, it is a one-time occurrence, or if it happens more frequently. Then if it does, at a future date, to do something. So there may be other options, but those are the ones I came up with.
Let me ask you a question. So the first option that's viable, the $78,000 option, that was simply trenching, right? A path
Right.
from where the end of the pipe is that the water's coming out, down to where the pipe is that goes underneath Irving Lake.
Right.
Okay. Then the next option that you talked about was connecting a pipe to where the pipe is that the water's coming out right now. Connecting a pipe there and running that pipe, trenching underneath Irving Wick, and having that new pipe end on the other side of Irving Wick, on the Ramp Creek side of Irving Wick.
Right.
Okay. What about the option of connecting a pipe to where the pipe is right now that the water is coming out of, and connecting that pipe to the pipe that already is under Irving Wick, the one that we would propose to trench to in the first option, so that we don't have to bore underneath 79?
What you would have to do is run the water in a drainage ditch from that point eastward to where that pipe is, which is probably a good 100 yards, maybe, I'm not sure. And the problem you've got there is elevation. The elevation doesn't work in your favor, it works against you. There isn't really a drainage ditch between those 2 points.
I guess what I'm thinking about, John, is if we, and even if it was plastic, pipe, connect one end of the pipe to where the water's flowing out right now.
Oh, okay.
Then running that plastic pipe into
Down through
the
the
pipe
ditch,
that
yeah.
already exists
Okay.
underneath Irving Wick, and just connecting these two pieces of pipe that are already, as opposed to connecting to that pipe upstream and then trenching underneath 79 a new, I'm sorry, did I say 79? Yeah, Irving Wick. Trenching under, we already have a pipe that's underneath Irving Wick
Right.
that goes to, so can we just connect those two pieces of pipe?
So basically what you're doing is putting a pipe in the ditch and connecting the two.
Yeah, where the end of the pipe
You can
is that
do
water's
that.
coming out to the end of the pipe is that currently runs underneath Irving Wick. Can we connect those two?
You can do
By
that,
pipe.
but in order to do that, you've got to go through that whole ditch, remove all the shrubs and the trees and the residue, then dig the ditch, then put the pipe in. And the clearing and grubbing on the first suggestion was the most expensive part. You would literally have to do a lot of that just to clear a path to put the pipe in. So it's physically possible to do that, but the cost would be a lot more, just to clear a path to put the pipe in. It's not a clear path from one end to the other. It's full of all sorts of obstructions.
I would think, talking with John Geller about, when we have to bore water lines or sewer lines, once you get that bore out, that comes with a fairly high price. So if option number 2 was to run a new pipe, connecting to the one upstream, and running a new pipe and boring it underneath Irving Wick and having it dump into Irving Wick, if the cost of doing that was $91,500, I would think that to run that pipe from the opening upstream, the end of the pipe upstream, to run that pipe from there to Irving Wick would also require some degree of clearing of brush and whatnot. We wouldn't go underground right then at that point.
No,
would we?
the pipe would be, well, the level of the pipe, the engineering hasn't been done.
Okay.
But the level of the pipe obviously would slowly go into the ground. It costs $52,000 roughly to bore underneath Irvingwood Drive.
Okay.
Now remember that it costs
Just to bore.
Just to bore, but now remember, it costs $36,000 just to clear the brush and stuff out of the Oak Creek bed. Then you have a pipe and the installation, which would add to that, probably another $35,000 to $40,000. So that would not be the cheapest way. It's a possible solution.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering is the idea that the first option of cutting a trench from the end of the pipe upstream to the end of the pipe downstream that goes underneath Irvingwood today. If the cost of that was $78,000, and we talked about how that would be a less than ideal solution given the lack of slope. Okay. If that would cost $78,000, I wonder if running a pipe between those two, I wonder if the cost wouldn't maybe come in somewhere between that and to run the pipe all the way underneath a new pipe all the way underneath Irvingwick. And you might be able to have a cost that's roughly the same, but a solution that's better, since the water stays in a pipe as opposed to on the ground in this new trench, which, given the volume of water that we could see, it might not, you might still have some ponding or some pooling up or whatever. It would seem to me if we could keep the water in a pipe, that would be a better solution as far as the end product. That it would be better than to have it, still be on the ground.
It's gonna fill in again.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Tim's got it.
I mean, it's just, I'm not an engineer, I'm just thinking out loud.
I'm not either, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express once. It's all fine and dandy that John's gone to the trouble to get different facts and figures and stuff here, but from a city standpoint, I don't think it's anything that we need to be concerned with. I don't think it's not our water, not our drainage, not our, problem. It's a homeowner's problem or the airport homeowner problem, and I think they need to work it out amongst themselves how they want to fix it or, contend with it. I don't see it's where the rest of the citizens of Heath need to be paying $30,000 to $200-some thousand to fix a problem that's not the citizens' problem. It's not. I mean, you may not like that viewpoint and stuff, but it's really not. The city of Heath did nothing to cause this problem. We have no dog in the fight, really. If the homeowner's property, they want to drain it to get to there. If they think the airport is putting water on them that's causing the problem, then go sue the airport, go fight it out with the airport, have the courts decide. But I can't see paying money to fix a problem that's not our problem. I mean, it'd be like if a farm field out there gets wet and the guy needs to drain his cornfield. We're not going to go out there and drain his cornfield so he can grow corn on it and stuff. If it's not city property, if we didn't cause the problem. I mean, you want to go on a private property and drain a private property and everything. I can see helping them out with, finding out the way to do it and stuff like that. But as far as paying for a contractor or anyone to go in there to drain it, I don't see it's where it's the city's problem. I mean, that's my opinion. You can do what you want. But, I mean, we can talk all night of ways to fix it. But, I mean, I personally would not support spending any money, taxpayer money on this. So, I don't know how the rest of the council feels about it. But
both ends of the pipe are on private property. So
yeah.
That's a fact, okay?
And it was there in 1930 and everything, so, I mean, the city of Heath did not cause it, didn't have nothing to do with it. So I don't see as, Now, if we didn't have a way for it to get underneath the road and, we're going to, that would be something. But there is a way to get it under the road, they can do it. But it's not our dog, in this fight. So, that's my viewpoint. You do what you want.
I know that in some neighborhoods we have, throughout the city, we have open stormwater drain systems. Were those established in those neighborhoods with the understanding that the city would maintain them? Because I know the city does, and will continue to maintain various open ditch stormwater drainage systems. Are those easements, the arrangements from doing that, are they something that's established separately, or how does that work?
It goes in both directions. If you have a subdivision like Willow Ridge that had drainage there before the subdivision was developed, and then they built the subdivision around that drainage and used that drainage to collect water from the subdivision, and the city would be responsible for that. But that's where a development occurred and it was dedicated to the city. All the drainage became dedicated and owned by the city.
Something like Forest Hills, is that
Same thing
similar?
with Forest Hills. But if you have a drainage ditch that's went across a farm field that collects water, like on Irvingwood Drive last year where we replaced the culvert, that drainage ditch that goes under the culvert, that's really private, not ours. So if there's a development that occurs and that development uses that drainage ditch and it's dedicated to the city, then it does become ours to maintain.
Okay.
So
But this was a private easement, right?
it's a private easement, yeah. It's
So we didn't inherit it when we became the village or the city of Heath,
No,
right?
no.
It's still
I think
a
you-
private easement.
that's
correct?
correct.
I have two questions,
I think the
tonight.
airport created the problem. I mean, the drainage ditch was put in there in '30, for the drainage pipe to drain the curb water that was there. And the rest of it was fenced over all that property there and dried out wind and sun. But when they built that runway and raised it, I forget how many feet they raised it, they created a dam, so I think it's their total responsibility to correct the situation.
I have two questions. You were talking about easements and how there's an easement for the pipe, but you would need property owner's permission to trench and clean out the property to let the water drain. So there is no easement for the actual water where it goes. Or did I misunderstand? There's an easement for the pipe, but there's no easement for where the water goes.
Yes, sir. It's not an easement. It's a natural condition of your property. And that's an important concept to keep in mind. When you purchased your property, that ditch was there, and the purpose of that ditch, even if it didn't have water in it at that time, was to convey the water from this pipe to the pipe that goes underneath Irvingwood Drive. We need your permission to go on that property if we were to do any maintenance on it, because it's your property, and we can't go on your property without your permission. Now, let me mention one thing, Cletus. The airport, the water comes from the airport and it comes from the landlord's property. It's not the airport's fault. This was done years ago when the federal government came in to build that runway. They worked with someone by the name of Robert Fulton to get an easement to allow the drainage of that field above the airport, because it was a grass field at that time. So you can't really sit there and say it's the airport's fault. It's not. The drainage was there when they put the airport in, and it drained to an existing conveyance, which was the river at that time. The airport didn't cause the problem. It was there, and the problem is that the river dried up and it got filled up and it stopped draining. And that's not the property owner's fault.
Yeah.
That's not the airport's fault.
Yeah.
That's not our fault.
I guess one thing that I heard John say that really struck with me is that maybe one of the options is to wait and see if this is an anomaly or if it happens more frequently. To me, if we even think that it could be an anomaly, why would we even be considering spending money at this point? I think that you need to first identify there really is the problem, and then we can determine if we have any responsibility in it. But if it could be an anomaly, then I don't even think we would be even talking about spending
To
money.
be fair, our rainfall
Yeah.
didn't have in 100 years. I just think that's what the report was on TV.
I wonder if I could, I apologize, I have to leave. All good discussion, and I certainly have, what's your name down there that you?
Tim.
Tim, thanks for your comment, and part of me really leans that way too. It really does. One of the first time I heard $30,000, I think you all heard my comment, said, no, I don't want to spend my money that way. My money too. I don't want to spend $30,000 to drive that up back there. but I also don't want the mosquitoes and the mess and all the other stuff. What if we do this? You know, we're looking at levels or high and low spots from years ago. Can we spend the money just to survey that area to find out what at least the drops are? Because I like your idea. I think that idea would work if that elevation is there, and I believe it is. I really do. I think if we went down through there, that those elevations are there to make that work.
We actually did a survey. We had
Oh, did you?
engineers go
Okay.
do it. I don't have the result right here.
Okay.
I can get it for you. That was done.
Because I didn't
That's
see
what I
anybody
used.
down there, and I didn't know that you did. I didn't know you'd done
Yeah, they were there last week, I
that.
think.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So we had them come in and shoot the high spots, because that grade is really important.
Oh,
to
sure.
make it work
To
out.
make that, yeah.
Right.
Because if you don't, it's going to flood it'll go back to the airport again.
Yeah, it will.
You
And
know,
it's just,
that-
it's not
it
gonna
won't push it
relieve you
through
of
the
the
pipe.
problem.
It'll
Right.
find the high spot. And
Yeah.
so,
The only other question I have, I think I understand, but I want to be clear, all those figures you have are estimates, that's from an outside contractor doing the work, correct?
Right.
Has anybody considered that, you know, because I've talked to some people, I know some people that work for the city, you know, and they certainly have resources available to them and manpower that can actually do some work. They've even expressed to me that they don't quite understand why oftentimes they're not afforded the opportunity to do the work, it just gets farmed out to contractors. That would certainly
another
be
question.
a significant.
We haven't done anything to maintain the ditch. I mean, if it was left that way, or if maybe it was designed that way to flow at one time, I wasn't aware of it, and if it was designed that way, we didn't do anything to maintain it. The gentleman that the property, the pipe is on, didn't know there was an easement there. I didn't know if there was an easement across my property. I didn't know, what needs to be done there to maintain it. Maybe we just needed to take a dozer down there and do what you said. I don't
We
think
didn't
it's
even know there was the culvert was there until 3 years ago
No.
when we started seeing the water continue to build and continue to build.
yeah.
I do know it was there. And many a times they stopped it. They stopped the water and then opened it back up here last year or two.
And I talked to the gentleman that did the work over at the airport or the airport, and what they did was they improved the efficiency of how that ran into that culvert. They didn't do anything, add anything. All they did was laid tile to it, so it's more efficient. But what it's done is it's
Increased
created
the volume.
problems somewhere else. So it's just pushed it along. So.
Why don't you just go down there and just build a bank set where it comes out?
Well, you still want to get the water off the property. if
Yeah,
you can.
but I mean, that's what they did before. They went down and they dug that ditch deeper and piled dirt, so most of the water was contained in that ditch.
You got here a little late, so you probably didn't hear the first theory we had. I don't know if you
I
heard
don't
that.
think so.
The first option we looked at was to clean the ditch line out.
Okay.
And the problem we've got is that'd be so expensive to do because of all the brush and the trees that it elevates it to some of the other options. And secondly, the slant or the grade is so small
Yeah.
that the water, even if it were clean, would barely move because it's not a real steep grade. So you want to move faster than that. If you
Now, I've lived there 30 some years, and I've got stories from people who lived there that have passed away, like the Myers that lived beside me there. And they told me that it was ODOT put it in there. And the old lady that owned that property sat down there with a shotgun. It's stories, I guess she was somewhat like that, and wouldn't let him go any further with it. But it should have went underneath.
Wow, that would have been a story.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I got all kinds of stories about this lady.
It would be amazing if we had the people here that were present at the time all that
Yeah.
was done. We'd probably have a lot of stories
I
like
have a
that.
lot of easements. I might find out some more too.
Yeah.
But I don't even have an easement in my deed.
Well, I don't think there are any easements across the properties where the old stream used to be. There is an easement for the property if you're the owner of it.
Mhm.
We have references to the easement. It was done in the 1930s. I was going to give copies to Bruce. And I mean, what we have, there's a lot more than what we have. And you're welcome to research it. and get more information if you like, but what we've got, it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
So, but I'm sure there's a lot more information if you wanted to go for it.
The end of the pipe where the water's coming out, did that used to drain straight into that bend in Ramp Creek?
Yeah, when Ramp Creek was there, yes it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went right to the edge. The plans actually show it going there. The plans for the initial airport development show the easement, they show the pipe, they show exactly where it enters.
And then when ODOT rerouted Ramp Creek and that drainage pipe no longer drained straight into Ramp Creek, was that why ODOT put that pipe that currently exists under Irvingwick?
Yes. They put it at the low end of the Oak Creek bed with the thought of continuing the drainage underneath Irvingwick to the new river.
Okay.
Location.
So storm water that would have come out of that pipe then would have, from that point, in theory, followed what was the path of Ramp Creek,
Right.
and it would have gone right to that pipe. Okay.
Where is that located? Is that east or west of Aldine?
Almost right across
Right
from
across.
where the bike path bridge is now.
Yeah, yeah. If you go down Eldine, and you'll see it right at the end of
So
Eldine.
it's east of Aldine.
Yeah, it's a 36-inch pipe, pretty big pipe. So it's,
So that was the thinking when
Yeah.
when Irvingwick West was put in, was
right.
that's how that was going to be accommodated.
Yep.
And that would have been before Aldine Drive was developed.
That would have been right about the time Eldine was being developed. The two kind of coincided.
Do you know exactly the timetable between the two?
Not precisely, within a couple of years.
But you said that could have had an effect on
Yeah, I think it
development
did.
of
What we did find out is at the time they were putting Irvingwick Drive in, some of the last lots at the bottom of Eldine were not yet developed. And so when they were developed, it's very possible they put fill on those lots and stuff like that. No one really knows for sure. So, it's you guys are a victim of something that is kind of a natural occurrence that no one intended to happen, no one planned for it to happen, and there's really no responsibility for it other than nature itself.
Only thing I would disagree with, I don't know how you can use the term natural, because everything that was done from the concrete culvert on was man-made.
Well, what I
It's
think,
not natural.
one thing I think that happened was once they rerouted Ramp Creek, the water flow in the old riverbed was so slight out of that pipe. That's all it was. And I think probably there were long periods, just like Bruce said, of dry spells where no water or just a trickle. It could have been for years. And then that allowed everything to grow in. And then, I'm no expert on weather, but periodically, every 30, 40 years, you get these seasons, 2 or 3 seasons, where everything is out of the normal, and it changes everything.
And if it was like what this gentleman said, where what was it, 2 or 3 years ago that they did the repaving of the runway, and if they put in some drainage tile or whatever to run into the pipe, and that's what it's there for. That's what it was put in there for in the 30s, was to drain water off of there. If they just, started to actually get the water to that pipe, whereas before the water wasn't getting to that pipe, then this condition wouldn't have existed until the water started getting back into that pipe.
And one thing we've seen this year, and I'm just bringing these up so you're aware of it too, this isn't the only case where we have a situation like this. This is the worst case, without a question. But I've got at least 2 to 3 other cases in the last 3 months, 4 months, where people have said in the last 60 years, we have not seen this happen. We've lived here for 60 years. Why is it happening all of a sudden? So that's why I use the word anomaly at the beginning. It could be that it could last for another year or 2 years. Then it may dry up. I just don't know.
Well, that's why I talked to Mike, the gentleman that just left, about that. I equate it to me going to the doctor. I don't rush to the doctor every time something hurts. About a month later, when it hadn't stopped hurting, I go to the doctor. But in the doctor's mind, this is a new problem.
Yeah.
So that's the way he sees it. Well, it's not a new problem. He just became aware of it. And like I said, I've watched this problem just continue to worsen for the last 3 years. It's been a problem for 3 years. I've just seen where it has not ever dried up. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse because the ground keeps sinking because there's so much water on the ground that the ground just keeps sinking. So then that creates a bigger pool and a bigger pool and a bigger pool.
Up between my house and my neighbors, I've got a gully like this, and it's gotten deeper, and we get water there too. And it's right where that pipe goes.
There, I don't know if
Is the pipe deteriorating?
it's possible.
Then we could have a sinkhole put over
The bed of Rap Creek, I moved in Whispering Pines in '75. And since then, the depth where Rap Creek was, it's dropped a good 6 to 8 feet. And there was one of the guys that was working on there when they was rerouting, taking care of that oil spill. I asked him, I said, did that make a problem into the drainage here? He says, no. He says, there's one problem. ODOT created the whole thing. And he says, one thing you don't ever do is mess with God's plans. I don't know where he was. He was an engineer, I know. But he says, when you reroute any creek, branch, or river, he says, there's never no end to the lasting effects. And he says, you're going to see these banks wash away here, and we have. Because he says, the water, the way it was designed by old times, God or whoever, the water is made to run through there without any restriction and continue. But when they rerouted that, they caused, he said, I forget what he called it, some kind of phenomenon. And I think probably the guy was right. He was a geological engineer, that's what he was.
Your soil conditions would be different where you have a natural river and then where you dug a new one.
Yeah.
So that easement is ODOT's?
No,
No, the airport.
it belongs, the easement belongs to, it was transferred to the airport. Just going back, the city of Newark, we'll blame it on Newark, bought the land where the airport is now in the 1930s. And a guy by the name of Van Voorst and a guy by the name of Fulton, they purchased the property from them. And from Fulton, they also acquired the easement for the drainage pipe to be installed in the easement to the riverbed. And that's what, I'll make copies of that for you, Bruce, and you'll see that. So it goes way back then. Anyway, guys.
The easement too, I don't have anything.
So the
I'll
airport's
see you
easement
around.
then ends where that pipe comes out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because that was where Ramp Creek used to be.
right. And the document, there's a lot more documentation than what I have. A lot of what I have references other documents and stuff like that. So if you had a lot of spare time and you wanted to go out and research this, you could probably even get more documentation, but there's enough in here to pretty much substantiate everything that was said. So,
That's, I've got to agree with Mr. Kelly. I just don't think it's our dog. I mean, I'd like to see us be able to help them, but I don't see where it's something that we really are into. I just don't.
Built steamboats, right?
The only point I would make is the water's only half the problem, and we've already made the point about the mosquitoes and
and the street
Take that for
department
what
has
it's worth from a
indicated to us
public
they are
health
trying to
perspective.
fog more heavily in that area too, which is one thing, Mayor, that you
oh,
may
I've been
want to
having them fall with
get
this
with
out
Bob.
for the last 3 years.
Yeah. But that is a problem.
Well, is there any more questions? If there are not, we'll move on, and John will continue to do what he can. Thank everyone for their input. John, go ahead, next one.
Hey, Bruce.
Okay. Item number 2, ordinance number 3614. I actually did a legislative request and had a first reading on it several months ago. That's the ordinance that dedicates the improvements to the west entrance to the Port Authority. What's happened is the Port Authority is delaying that project. They didn't get many bids in for it, and the bids they did get were really high. So they've postponed the project, and later in the year, they're gonna go out and rebid it with a tentative start date for construction being late next winter, early next spring. So I was just going to suggest there are 2 options. We can continue to leave this on the table for that long, or you can take it off the table, vote it down, and then I can reintroduce it in a more timely, whatever you want to do. Okay, leave it on the table. Item number 3, for your comfort, always thinking of the comfort of council. A few years ago, we had the HVAC, heating and cooling systems, in the police and the administrative side updated, and they worked really well. However, we didn't do this side because we just didn't have the money to do it. The temperature in this room, believe it or not, even though you have thermostats here, is controlled by the temperature in the other room. So if you want it cool in here, you have to make it cold in there. If you want it warm in here, you have to make it hot in there. We can fix this for only about $18,000. And I got an estimate to do that because I know when the mayor had his labor negotiations here and there were other meetings in this room, it got very uncomfortable. And
Temperature-wise.
temperature-wise, you're right. Only temperature-wise. Anyway, just an update on this. The mayor advised today that we'll be preparing budgets for next year, and I will discuss with him the cost for improving the HVAC in these 2 rooms. So just to let you know, I'm thinking of your comfort all the time. All right. Now, if you believe that, let me go on to the next one. Thornwood Drive, paving is going to commence around August 18th for resurfacing Thornwood Drive. I double checked with ODOT last week on that, and they said it's still the tentative date. It'll take probably August 18th. It'll probably take roughly 3 weeks to do the whole project through striking and everything else. The various school districts have been advised of it, and ODOT will be making the public announcements to the newspapers and the radio stations and stuff like that.
Still one-lane traffic.
There will be one-lane traffic at times, and it will be very slow most of the time while they're doing that. So I would, if I could, avoid Thornwood Drive.
We'll use the city's website and our Twitter account and Facebook account to help get the information out on this as well. When we get a little bit closer to the to the date.
Okay, so that's going very well. Item number 5, cost to cut grass. Again, this year we've been cutting grass for people who have not cut it. And this is on your agenda for tonight. I didn't know if you wanted a copy of that for the records. That's just what we're asking, being sent to the auditor so we can recoup the cost when the properties are sold or they pay their taxes. Probably closer to when the properties are sold.
We get that to the auditor's office.
What we do is we wait probably within a month of getting the final bill, we'll get it to the auditor's office. So the report I have is probably about maybe 1 month to 6 weeks worth of grass cutting. It's the second one we've done this year.
Yeah.
So
John, was there a ordinance associated with the, never mind, that's coming.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Item number 6. Now Debbie Cole, I'm sure, isn't old enough, but but probably maybe Becky too. But the rest of us, unfortunately, are old enough to remember that 50 years ago, the city became a city. In April, I think April 15th of 1965. Our 50th anniversary is coming up in 2015. And it's an opportunity, if you want to take it, to celebrate that anniversary. It just so happens that there are a few people whose name, Jan Wilkin, I won't mention, that are very interested in helping to organize an event like this. So I'm bringing this up now to see if you would be interested. The city would sponsor the event, in essence. And would you want to see the 50th anniversary for the city, some kind of a celebration? It could be a 1-hour thing. We gotta watch Can. Don't put this in the ring, Can, please. Okay. You gotta, if you say, Jan, go ahead and do it, you're gonna have a 1 month extravaganza with the president coming here, you know, and naming a ship in the Navy after Heath and everything else. But anyway, are you interested in celebrating the city's 50th anniversary? We'll never have another one. If so, I will, with the mayor's support, look at what can be done here.
I think it's something that's certainly an occasion, a momentous occasion in this city's history, and I think it's worth celebrating. I think it's worth recognizing. Now, like John said, we don't have any idea. We really haven't conceptualized much as far as what the scope of it would be. But I think it's something that everybody in the city should be proud of, and I think it's something that should be recognized and celebrated.
Likely not a parade, given.
No, yeah, I was going to say, because you're looking at about another month for the armed forces. Yeah, so I don't envision that being part of it.
Parade.
This would be, this would be a very specific. We would not, the Armed Forces Parade would not be associated with us at all. We want to definitely keep distance, and because we have two events so close together, we have to gauge our speed and our efforts on this. But I mean, it still should be something nice.
Huh?
It still should be something nice. Nice to look at.
I thought you said.
I said you're nice. You're right.
Yeah, I'm all for it, although I have to say it's a different sentiment than we heard when it was time for the police department's anniversary. So I mean, I'm all for it. We should celebrate the city's anniversary, but we didn't support our police department like we should have for their anniversary. It's just a different attitude for this.
Well, I remember we commissioned the photograph of all of the officers together. I remember the overtime that we had to pay to get officers to participate in that. I remember, I think also there were there were badges that were that all of the officers and detectives got that commemorated that. I think if I recall, you and some others, Becky, helped to raise some funding for that. I don't know, Brian, if I would necessarily agree that we didn't support the idea of recognizing the department's 50th anniversary. I wonder if maybe we didn't support the idea more than some of the people in the department themselves supported the idea.
I would disagree with you on that, but I will agree to disagree that you didn't automatically give us the support to do that. We didn't have to have the long drag out summation of it. That's fine. I support the idea of 50th anniversary for the city. That I do. Just check.
Well, I think what we'll do is we probably, I think Jan and maybe the mayor and maybe anyone else you think would be interested in it, we'll sit down.
I'm sure it'd be great to have
And
anybody
establish
else.
limits. I think the first thing you need to do is establish a limit to what you want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
You got to kind of define the scope of what you're looking at.
Yeah. So,
Can't follow the rules if you don't have rules.
right. So you got to start someplace, and it's just the base. But that's a good question, Dick. I don't have to answer that, but I don't think you want to put a lot of money into it, honestly.
Okay.
An outstanding question.
I think this.
I can think of some pretty meaningful things that we could do that really don't require much of a price tag.
Yeah, you could put a tent in the parking lot.
I think
get a
something
cake
like
and-
this, though, should be outside of this committee. And I think probably Tim and the mayor should, and John should come up with something.
This is really all of the guys because it's the zoning department's 50th anniversary, and I'll start bringing it.
Yes. That ship is going to be called the USS John Groff.
Yeah. Well,
Really
anyway,
get to thinking.
it sounds like I've got your interest in it, which is all I wanted. Yes, we did.
Did we?
Yeah.
Clerk-
No, we didn't. No, we
Yeah, I
didn't.
know.
We skipped number one. Right, thank you, Dick.
I think I was in the brief.
Item number one, chapter 1166 of the City of Heath Codified Ordinances outlines what a residential condominium zoning district is. And now we have R1 zoning, which is single family zoning. We have R2 zoning, which is duplex zoning, and it also includes single family homes. Then we have R3 zoning, which is multifamily homes, and you can also put duplexes in there and single family homes. Then on top of that, we have R3C, which is condominium zoning. And the condominium zoning would include all of the residential zonings underneath it, which it does. However, there's a contradiction in the R3C condominium zoning ordinance, 1166. At the top, it says it includes single-family homes. And then under uses not allowed, it has single-family homes. So it does both. Take your choice. So
That's convenient.
yeah, it gives me a lot of leeway if I don't want
Yeah.
something to happen.
Yeah.
But we should remove not allowing single-family homes. And what this and the reason for that is the zoning ordinances are progressive. As I said, the higher the ordinance goes, the more types of zoning it includes in it. So by nature of how zoning works, this should include single-family homes, which it does, but I don't know how it happened. And Eddie Hunt spotted this, credit goes to him. You go really deeper into the zoning and then it contradicts itself. So what I'd like to do is have legislation approved that removes the not allowing it in there, because it just doesn't make sense. So
Is that anything, John, that would maybe need some sort of a public hearing notice on to get to offer feedback or input from citizens?
Since it's a zoning ordinance, it would go to the planning commission after the first reading.
Okay.
Then the planning commission would make a recommendation, then council would have a public hearing.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Probably.
Do you
not
have
much
that
more than-
legislative request?
Yes, I've got that legislative request.
Probably not much more than really kind of a typo.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Uh-huh.
It's one of those things that we just didn't see. Show you how much I read the zoning ordinances. I just.
How long you been in opposition?
Yeah. Any questions on that? Okay, we did item number 2 and 3 and 4. Okay,
We're down to 8.
item number 8. A final legislative request. ODOT has sent preliminary legislation for the paving of Oakville Drive and State Route 13. Now, we're looking at, let's see, probably the summer of 2016, late 2016 for this to be done. But this is the preliminary legislation which authorizes the mayor to sign a contract with ODOT to get that done. So,
Okay.
and this is one where we hope to go to Ohio Public Works Commission and get some of their money to pay our match for it.
Federal highway money plus OPD.
Yes,
That's what we're gonna apply for.
just like when we did the bridge on Hopewell Drive, we used very little of our money. And also, just for your information, next week, the mayor and I will be meeting with ODOT to discuss a resurfacing program for State Route 79 from Andover Road to Kaiser Drive. This is about 4 years down the road.
Is that next week or this week?
Next week?
Is it? Okay.
I can't say.
All right.
And one other thing too, back to item number 7 on our public list. I went over today to the property that we were discussing with the drainage on it, and I visited it several times. And the first couple of times I visited, they truly had a significant amount of water there. Today, when I visited it, the drainage from the pipe was nothing more than a trickle, and you can see that water is decreasing. So there's definitely a connection in regard to seasonality and stormwater runoff. And I believe everything they say about the last year or two, this is suddenly occurring. And it could be just the airport cleaning out pipes combined with a tremendously wet year we've had. So anyway, just wanted to mention that. It is clearing up a little on its own. It has a long way to go, but it's a lot better than it was before.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for John? Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
6:24.
Anybody need 5 minutes? You wanna go right into finance? Stop it.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Covered in flush.
One more, Brad.
Well, I'm just there. What can I say? Heath, read my name. That's easy.
That was the last one.
Okay, no big deal, no big deal.
Everybody got a copy?
Who's here that's not usually here?
You want to get your copy after
I'm
Nick?
fine.
No, that's suspect.
You're fine.
It's not too complicated here,
I'll
so.
save mine for a quarter.
Actually, Nick,
This is rather thin compared to.
I've got this on my computer, I just printed me another.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, everybody's got a copy, who wants a copy? 6:25, we'll call Finance Committee to order. First item, which we just covered, remove 116604. Is that B? Is that B? Or C? What is it?
1166.
That's a B.
Section B, single and multi-family dwellings from chapter 1166. Any questions, comments? Second item, ordinance, mayor to sign preliminary legislation for the paving of Park Ball Drive in 13. Any other comments?
What is the city's match on that estimated?
For the 79 KV.
No. For Hopewell,
About 360,000. Somewhere around
that's the estimated city's match or the total?
estimated city's match.
Okay. 366.
Around there, 360.
Okay, other items, utility account,
And you'll notice that forwarding the delinquent utility accounts to the county auditor was something John Geller asked me to put on my agenda. It would appear that Lynn has it on your agenda anyway, so that can be just disregarded.
strength is.
See, I don't think we discussed it last week, might be the reason.
It might be, I don't know, but I see that it's on the council agenda.
Yeah, remember he brought that up after the meeting. He said, I forgot to cover that.
Oh.
They were here. Yeah.
Okay, well,
That's why he had it on your agenda, because he didn't talk
just
about
made
it in
sure
this
it
committee. It was-
didn't-
it's on somebody's agenda, well, it's on mine.
Yeah,
And I think it's just kind of a standard protocol.
yeah.
The other thing on other items that I'll point out is that, the guy that bought the 2010 police Charger, it had been our canine vehicle. He didn't take the kennel that went with that. And so he literally abandoned it. He says, I don't, and that kennel cost over $3,000.
Can we eBay that?
I saw, that's where I was going. It's on an eBay listing that started today
Okay, good.
because it doesn't fit, well, it would fit some of our other vehicles, but we don't need it. It's in, it just takes up space. And since it's abandoned property, I'm claiming it for the city. And it's on eBay right now. I'll try to, at some point in time, send a link to everybody so they can watch that unfold. There's been a lot of views, but nobody's watching the item. But it just started, I think, at 11 this morning, along with the 1990 dump truck at the street department that you authorized disposal of earlier this year. That I'll send you a link so you can watch that. That last I saw is bid all the way up to $309. But
Nick, is that yours? Is that your bid on that? No?
No, he was 308.
yeah, I started bidding on both of these items at 99 cents. We'll see where they go, and
Keith
that's-
shared with me a week or two ago on the west side of Columbus, out near 270, I think, there's a state surplus depot of, you know, this, that, and the other that you can get. That's, do you know, Keith, what, something maybe to look at? Could we give them things to auction or to sell to other municipalities in the manner that we as a city can buy things from there?
I don't have a clue. I
I'd
don't
be
know.
curious to know how that works, you know, rather than selling a canine kennel for a charger for $5, if the state, I mean, I don't know, you know, I'm curious if that would be another avenue. Should we not be happy with the eBay route if we could use that somehow to get rid of things that we're not getting what we think it's worth?
You know, I don't know. I suppose every once in a while you might have an item that you're surprised that you didn't get as much out of it through the eBay process, but generally my surprise is the other way. That I'm surprised at how much that process delivers to us.
You know, something, and I may be,
But that would sure be. First of all, you'd have to deliver
Yeah.
the stuff.
yeah,
In our case, you'd have to have that dump truck towed,
yeah,
and in our case, you'd at least need to send a pickup truck over and back to deliver this kennel. I don't know if in the course of them moving around they'd come up with pieces missing. Anyway, I don't know. It's a good question. They are disposing of state property and federal property, so the feds at least are utilizing them as a conduit for surplus item disposal. It'd be interesting to ask that question of them.
There's something that, and I might be wrong, Chief Mason might know the answer better, or Officer Andy. But there's something in the back of my mind that tells me one of the reasons that we were looking at the Ford Explorer as the canine vehicle was that the new Chargers had been changed so that our canine compartment was not compatible in the new Chargers.
Yeah, I right before I listed it, I texted Officer MD and asked him what model years this unit fit, and he said 2008 to 2012. So apparently 2000. He said something that I didn't completely understand about that tail light that's high in the window. Something, they changed that, and this kennel would not function properly with the newer Chargers. So I believe you would be correct in that assumption.
Okay.
Anything else?
Question.
Only that there's, sir,
Have you heard of the website gov.deals?
sure.
Okay, I don't know if you.
The city has an account with them. I've never utilized them. I've more looked at it to buy stuff myself, which you can do. I'm a fan of eBay and the vastness of eBay. I'm just astounded at some of the disposal successes. I mean, we sent a used, wore out Kubota lawnmower to, I think, Norway. who would ever think that somebody from Norway would buy a used lawnmower from Heath, Ohio, and I'm thinking, right, the bidding ends. Oh man, this is going to be one of these sales that is not going to go. But within 24 hours, I was contacted by them. They said they were going to have a shipping company here, and the shipping company showed up when they said they would. I wouldn't have bet 10 cents on a dollar that this was going to go, but it did. And I don't know, but anyway, it's the vastness of eBay is such that soon after these items are listed, I'm going to bet 2 hours after they were listed, we had 57 people look at the dump truck, and another 35 or 40 had looked at this kennel. And it's just astonishing to me that there's people sitting around on the web looking at this stuff, and soon we will have a large number of people watching it. And watching it basically is like, I'm interested in enough in these items that I'm going to identify myself as watching this, and eBay will like send you a reminder email when the auction is closing. If you're a bidder, you're automatically considered to be watching it, and if you get outbid, they send you an email. So govdeals.com is a very plausible site to use.
Reason I asked, my hometown, that's how they dispose of their stuff. But how do I find Heath stuff on eBay? What do I look under?
Well, if you will send me an email, I'll send you a link. The other thing you can do is you do a search for 1990 Ford dump trucks, and
go out on eBay and search them.
And you'll maybe get 15 or 20 of them, but one of them would be orange with City of Heath logo on the side.
Lady orange dump truck. That'll pare it down.
I looked for the Mercury Marquee and couldn't find one.
We need executive session.
Oh, now that's disappointing if you were really looking and couldn't find it. Huh? You send me an email, I'll send you the links.
Can you search by seller?
By what?
Seller? Like if we identified what you are in there as the seller, could we
Maybe.
search?
The eBay username for Heath is Heath Auditor, all one word.
Okay, that's what I was asking. But if you were to search dump truck and you filter the mileage of the miles, it'll shoot a distance. Like you can tell it search within 20 miles or 25 miles.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's going to give you the closest first to your address if you, so
Yeah.
it should be one of the first ones that come up. That's another way to look for it.
Anything else? Okay.
Well,
6:38.
I was gonna talk about these items tabled. Dick asked me about them in particular, and those remain on the table, and they, one is elected official salaries, and the other is the
Office or election activity.
election activities permissible by city employees. And those items, I guess, will remain tabled in my agenda until such time as you all say we're done. We've resolved we're not going to do anything about these things, or whatever.
Keep kind of waiting on all the union contracts to be done.
Anything else? Okay, was your at 6:40?
You caucus now or wait, Tim?
And then, everyone good to go? All right. Invocation, it's Mr. Morrow.
Yep.
No election appointments.
Yeah, sure, no
Unfinished
problem.
business. District communications, did them, committee reports. Introduction of ordinance, introduction for the sprinkler system.
Bob said that that's fine for a second reading.
Ordinance on second reading. Amend codified ordinance regarding general requirements. That's the sign thing that we. So that would be.
Is that the digital sign?
Yeah. That'd actually come out of Cletus, I guess, probably.
It would have
Came out of
come out of
planning.
planning commission.
Planning commission, I can do it.
Yeah, okay, all right, Jeff, why don't you do it?
I can do
Yeah,
it.
it did come out of planning.
I can do it.
What? I left it in there.
Fire department, that's Brian.
Maintenance account.
The next one, the
That's-
radios,
that's
that would be
police.
Brian.
That's police. 60 is police.
Brian.
63 is, well, I guess that's fire.
Brian, you're gonna be busy.
Those CRAs.
CRAs, those would all be,
Yeah, community development.
Brian, you got ordinance 56 through 63. Okay. Unless you didn't want them. Resolutions on second reading.
Tim, the way this will work, talk to Mike Smith, the
Okay.
county auditor. And this resolution 2 basically asks for information from the county auditor's office. They will bring that information with them tonight.
Okay.
So what you need to do is, if you are so inclined to, if council is so inclined to put this on the ballot, after you pass resolution 2, we need to get that information, and they can, he can walk it right up and hand it, to you or Lynn or whatever. Need to get the information from the county auditor's office and then proceed with the vote on resolution number 3. Does that make sense?
Okay. We just physically need to have it.
Correct.
Was the language corrected in reference to?
Lynn said yes. That it's not, that this should be a 5-year. That there are a couple of places in there where it refers to 3-year. So, were those amended 2 weeks ago? Or do those need to be amended tonight?
We changed them to
We
five.
changed it before it's read, because she just reads by
We
title.
changed it
So I
before
told her
it's
to change it in the
Yeah.
thing, and we were making it 5.
Gotcha.
Because you read it by title.
That's right.
So
Okay.
it was changed before it was read.
Okay.
We called them typos.
It seemed to me that there was another issue that Brad Cottrell communicated about, that he copied, that there was something about the language in reference to whether it was permanent or what's the deal there?
He was referring to if we were dealing with the 2 existing levies or a new levy,
Okay.
as I understood it.
Yeah.
Because remember, in my email back to him, I told him this is a new 1 mil 5-year levy that we're looking at.
Okay.
So who wants to make the motion on both of those? Fire, you want, Brian? You say Mike will be here tonight to have it, to bring it up,
Or
or someone
Brad.
from his office or somebody? or
Yeah,
something, okay.
yeah, somebody's supposed to be here tonight.
Well, theoretically, they could bring it to us before, I mean, they would have to wait until it's passed, but to actually bring it up, we can have it laying there, it's approved, and then we have it, I mean, no different than if they would have delivered it.
The resolution requests it,
Yeah.
requests the information, so.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we just have to have it right
Yeah,
here. I mean, you know what I'm saying, it's like,
yeah.
you know, you request it, we got it, you know,
Yeah.
we just happened to, you know, they were quick on it.
Brad brought up the question, and I called Mike to see how, you know, we needed to handle it. And that's what Mike said, you know, first resolution requests this information.
Yeah.
If I know what information you're going to request, I'll have it with me.
Okay.
So it was that was the idea.
Any other?
Under miscellaneous, guys, and Tim, I think you were, after the last council meeting, I think you were up at the podium as part of this discussion as well. We may not have followed to the letter the process for changing those civil service rules that were approved 2 weeks ago. So Tim, under miscellaneous, what we need is a motion to have Lynn craft a letter to the Civil Service Commission asking that they waive Rule 150 in regards to those civil service rule changes of 2 weeks ago. Do you want to do that? To me, it seemed like miscellaneous was the only place I could think of for that.
So we just need someone to make it, I'm gonna ask Jeff if you'll do this.
Okay.
If you can craft the right verbiage to say, you know, have the clerk of council request to waive Rule 150 in relationship.
We'll huddle down here and get
Yeah,
the wording.
Yeah.
But under miscellaneous, I'll say miscellaneous, you just call me and I'll call back on you and you make a motion to do that, and then we'll get someone to second it. We'll go from there. Oh, David, I was gonna ask you.
And that was
He's okay, David knows about, okay.
Yep.
Sounds good. Anything else from anybody? Have a little bit of a break. Stretch your legs. All kinds of good stuff. Yeah.
All right, let me take dictation
Yeah.
here.
After you make a motion and adopt.
Hey, David?
Zone out there.
Pause.
Your name is Steven and you're leaving, huh?
Before I have, you know what I'm saying?
I was
Be just a little gap.
remember
Just wait
our
till she reads it.
conversation 2 weeks ago of this thing when
All you have to do is make a motion to adopt. Well, you say
Mr. Pierce.